It's thinking. There we go. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. Sometimes my computer just likes to say, hey, I'm going to take a break for a second. So thank you for bearing with me and sticking in class. Okay, so for those of you who just jumped on, which includes me, because I just barely jumped on, I guess, you can hit up the Nearpod link right there I put in the chat. We do have some things where we'll have some collaborative stuff where you can go over there. So just so you're aware, this has been recorded for learning purposes. And as the classroom expectations, real quick, make sure you're just following with the Nearpod lesson, use the chat tools respectfully and appropriately, and then respond to questions and instructions the first time. Okay, so this week's lesson, what we're going to be doing is going over lesson plans and instructions. If we go to the course real quick, hopefully this has popped up now. Yeah, look at that. There we go. And as I was saying before, at the very end of class, I actually went over all of the questions. So if you didn't get great on your last quiz, go through that real quick, okay? That will kind of go over the questions, and you should have those available to you. If we look at our plan real quick, jump into here as this loads. So you have a live class today. You'll have 2 assignments due this week, the lesson 3 quiz, and then as well as the mid-course reflection. So the mid-course reflection is just basically 100 words or less, or at least 100 words, or it could be more, of just what you've learned so far in the last 3 weeks of the course. And if you can believe, we're basically halfway through because this is a block class. If we come up right here next, we have a couple things. End of the block's the 17th, but we are doing what's called a skills cert test. And so what that is information on here. You can get a certificate. There'll be a state test. It shouldn't take more than like 30 minutes, but it goes over the stuff that we talked about in class, okay? And if you get 80% or above, you get a state certification, okay? So that would be good for you to do it. Okay. All right. If we go to Unit 3, right here, I have some links here. The Nearpod link, if you want to follow that. We have what's called the Utah Effective Teaching Standard, which I'm going to be going over in a second. We'll have a lesson 3 quiz, and I'll do that, and then of course the mid-course reflection. So I'm just going to click that so we can get to it after that. All right, so let's get going on this lesson plans and instruction. And I wanted to show this real quick. This is something that it's put out by the state of Utah, and it's called the Utah Effective Teaching Standards and Indicators. And this is something that most schools, what they do is they follow to show ways that a teacher can be effective as they're teaching in their things. And they have a bunch of different standards here. One's called like learner development, learner differences, learning environment, content knowledge, assessment, instructional planning, instructional strategies, and then reflection and continuous growth, leadership and collaboration, and then professional and ethical behavior. And so that's like the 8-10 standards that are put on, and mostly when we do our like teacher evaluations at the end of the year to say, hey, you know, have you been meeting these criteria? This is what we have to go into and show that we are doing these kind of things. So if you're looking to be a teacher, those would be the standards you'd kind of do. Now, as we're looking at a teaching cycle, what you're going to do is we're going to look at being able to, one, do an assessment, okay? So the first thing you do is, and we'll go over all of these, like you're assessing the environment, you're assessing what your students are like, what they can do, what they can't do. Then you have what's called standards. Standards are basically what needs to be taught, is what they are, okay? So if I go to UEN core standards, okay. So what I do is I come here usually and let's do driver's ed, for example, because everybody loves driver's ed and I teach driver's ed. So driver's ed, there's certain standards that need to be met. And so like when I'm doing a theory course or there is behind the wheel, I don't do a lot of that training anymore. I go here and say, hey, okay, we have to have parent involvement and guidance. And what does that look like? And here's the standards, okay? Rules of the road, risk management, motor vehicle maneuvers and operation, the driving environment, okay? And so my course is laid out. So if any of you guys take driver's ed from me, we have 5 units and they're these 5 strands right here. And it hits all of these different standards. As you'll see if any of you guys take the theory course from me, okay? So that's what that means right there when it talks about standards, okay? Then what you do is you have a lesson. And in that lesson, the students usually develop some type of product or like knowledge. So like this week, the product is going to be the mid-course reflection, right? As well as the quiz. Okay, you're developing something for me to show me that you know it, right? That doesn't always have to be a quiz. It can be something else. Could be a project or whatever. And then you go and you do an assessment again. Okay, well, how did that go? How can I make that better? And you have that cycle, that continuous cycle, okay? So as we're looking at a lesson plan, we have all of these things right here. We said prerequisite assessment, prerequisite standards. So looking at these standards that went up like I did for driver's ed, lesson materials, the method, and we're going to be going over the method a little bit more today. That's what your quiz is on, is kind of different methods that they can do. Activities, and then that product. Okay, so your assessment. So first thing you need to do is assess the needs of the students. Okay, this is where you're individually looking at. So based on your curriculum, okay, so you got to look at your curriculum and see what you're looking at, what you're planning to do. That's what curriculum is. Like the textbooks and the information, where you're deriving the information from, all that stuff. Based on their prior products, okay? So you're going to look at what the students have done in the past, and you can see what they can and can't do, and make sure you tailor it to them. And then also based on individual needs, okay? Something that we'll be talking about a little bit more is some students, they're on what's called an IEP. It stands for Individualized Educational Program, is the official name of it. People usually say plan, but it's program. And it basically gives them specifically designed instruction in order to help them in the courses, right? That's followed, and help them support. There's also things called 504 plans, which have accommodations that are put towards them. So those are some things. So you got to look at all of these things. You got to see what the skills needs are. So for example, like if your students don't know how to create a PowerPoint presentation, you probably need to teach how to do a PowerPoint presentation before you give an assignment to do a PowerPoint presentation, right? If your kids can't read, you probably got to figure out a way to help them gain the knowledge, whether that's somebody reading it to them or a video to develop the information instead, okay? Methods and material needs. So what's the method you're going to go about bringing it to them, and what materials might you need? Do they need a Chromebook? Do they need worksheets? Do they need pencils? Do they need crayons? Do they need art material? All of this stuff needs to be taken into consideration when we're looking at these things. And then also support needs. Is there some financial support need? Were they getting all these materials? All that kind of stuff needs to go into it before you can even start going there. Then what you're going to do is you're going to pick a standard, okay? Use one simple standard to focus on. You're going to have to look at the grade level. So for example, like driver's ed over here, I'm not going to be teaching like first graders how to drive, right? So you got to really look at what grade level you're teaching at. You know what, if you're looking at science, right? you maybe don't want to teach, hard concepts of photosynthesis to kindergartners, right? So look at that there is. You need to look at the IEP goals that are being addressed. So back to that individualized educational program for students that are on those. See how to do it. It is required by law, IEPs and 504s. So that's something to consider. And then also define the goals of the lesson. Okay, what do you want the students will learn, and what students will learn to do. Okay. So like, for example, today's lesson, right? What I want you to do is be able to understand the different different teaching practices that we'll get into in a second. Okay. So as we're looking at lesson design of a lesson, it's based on standard, use effective methods. And that's what we're going to go over. And I want you to learn today is about and what I'm going to be measuring you on your quiz. Use effective materials. Okay. For our materials right here that we're all using computers, right? We're all using one online system. We're using the Nearpod as a material. Those would be the things that we're looking for, at least in a virtual environment. If we were in a physical environment, the things would be different. Use effective activities, require a product, right? So a quiz is a product or whatever you want it to be. Plan for what's called differentiation, okay? Differentiation is basically modifications, accommodations, and extensions. So you have people that are at different levels. So what you really want to do is say, okay, those that are a lower level and have a harder time, what can I do to accommodate them? Okay. So for example, some people can't keep up with the speed of the lesson, right? So that's why we record all our lessons and put it on there. So that could be an accommodation, right? An accommodation or modification would be something like, instead of writing 100 words on our reflection, you can write 50, okay? You're still doing what is required, but just a little bit less. Extensions would be more of those that are the really go-getters, right? So instead of saying, hey, I don't want you just to learn about the methods, the effective methods today, I want you to know about them, then research them, okay? So that would be an extension program that we could implement. All right, and then it also includes a means of assessment, right? And usually that's by that product. So we can look and evaluate that product. That's what we grade on, we don't grade on participation, we grade on what the product is and then the assessment. Okay, so the product could be like gesture, like, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, right? That's what they, little kids do. Or like whiteboards. I don't know if you've done those before, where you could just hand up whiteboards. Let me see everybody's whiteboard. Okay, perfect. Oral expression, so being able to do a presentation. I know a lot of classrooms, especially in colleges and stuff like that, they have you go up and they have you present in front of the class and say, this is what I learned, that kind of stuff. Written text, so papers, illustrations and diagrams, other physical products like building something. Quizzes would also be a product. Okay, and then what you do is you assess it again, okay? Assess the product the students produce. Usually you use some type of measurement like a rubric or scale. Teach your students how to assess their own work, which is very effective, right? And so they can learn to get better and they can improve on things, and then use the assessment to design your next lesson. So it's like, okay, I know they know this, and we could add on to what we did there and we could learn more and go on. So that's the cycle that teachers kind of go through to create a lesson plan and go there. So what I want you guys to do real quick is list here on the Nearpod. And if you're not on the Nearpod, if you wouldn't mind jumping on, that'd be awesome. Or if you can't, just type in the chat real quick as soon as this comes up. And the question I want you to answer, it's taking a long time for this to pop up. But when it does, it's going to talk about what was your favorite kind of lesson that you've had in the past and what made it so good. Okay. And I don't know why it's not working. Okay, why don't you guys put that in the chat, right? If this Nearpod isn't working here, we're gonna, let me see if I can refresh it real quick and if it'll do any better. Or it's gonna do the same thing it did for me before. Yeah, that's what it's showing on my end is a blank page. All right, so the question that I had for you guys is, what was the best lesson that you've ever had and what made it so good, right? So you could just do like my 8th grade science class because we dissected spiders. I don't know. And what made it so good? Okay, so somebody said quantitative math collage. It was explained really well and I could understand it. I also could have could use all the information in everyday life. That's awesome. I'm sorry, quantitative. Sorry, I'm going to say that wrong. So yeah, I think doing that and then you created a collage. So that's great. So I love how in certain things like that, my favorite classes are when we create something, right? Where we have some type of product at the end. Somebody said 8th grade math concerning the Pythagorean theorem was amazing. It gave a verbal and visual understanding of the theory. Yeah, and I think that's really big, like being able to see something, right? For me, like everybody learns different. What you remember when we talked about last time about Gardner's multiple intelligences, where I talked about each of us are in different, basically have different strengths, right? And so we may be a visual learner, or we may be a kinesthetic learner, or we may be, mathical and logical. So usually we tend to like those lessons that are more upon our things, where verbal and visual understanding. I like that. Learning about DNA and looking it through the microscope in school is very interesting. Yeah, being able to do things, right? Get out there, see it, touch it, right? I really do like online classes and stuff like that, but I like the in-person aspect of being able to go to a place and physically doing something. And we're going to talk about a method on here that's kind of like that. Oh, the after high school college. Okay, cool. Nearpod doesn't always work. Yeah, I'm sorry. Dang Nearpod. Okay. I like the library. Cool. Love learning about cooking. Yeah. And then the cooking, you learn about it and you get to do it, right? So that's why I think it's really kind of reinforcing. My 4th grade teacher was a really great teacher, and she would communicate with us on the level. I still haven't seen another teacher, seen with other teachers. She's a really good teacher. Awesome. Yeah, I think those elementary teachers are awesome. My wife teaches elementary and a lot better than me. That's all I got to say. Okay, let's see if this will work. Who knows? But this is going to talk us about different teaching strategies and then we'll go into specific strategies, and these will be parallel right to what our quiz is today. Okay, so let me put on mute and then we'll go from there.
Hello Kaguro! This video will help us review the teaching strategies we are using inside the classroom. Let's start!
A teaching strategy is the method you use to convey information to your students. There may be a particular strategy that works well with your group of students one year that won't work with your students the next year. Because of this, it's important to have lots of teaching strategies in your toolbox. Here are some of the top ideas for you to use. Number 1, modeling. After telling students what to do, it's important to show them exactly how to do it. This will help your students who are visual learners too. Number 2, feedback. Students don't always know if they're doing a good job without you telling them. Regularly provide written or verbal feedback for individual or group assignments. Also, it can be beneficial to turn the tables sometimes. Let the students provide you feedback to tell you how you're doing too. Number 3, experiential learning. Students learn by doing, so create experiences for them to see the concepts in action. Let them practice the concepts in a safe environment. Then, they should reflect on the experience and discuss what they learned from it. Classroom activities that you could do for experiential learning include fun games, experiments, or simulations. Number 4, student-led classroom. When students get to be the teacher for the day, they learn things that they wouldn't have learned otherwise. You could have students team teach or work in groups to teach a new topic. You'll find that other students will learn from their peers. Number 5, mistakes. If you ever accidentally spelled a word wrong on the board, you know that students love to identify mistakes. When you're teaching a new skill, make an example riddle with mistakes. Let students practice the skill by identifying and fixing the mistakes for you. Number 6, class discussion. Another way for students to teach each other is through class discussions. As students take turns discussing the subject, you can assess their knowledge and discover which student grasped the concepts and to what extent. Number 7, cooperative learning. Students learn effectively when they're working together. Plan activities that require students to work together and learn from one another. In the process, they also learn critical thinking skills, communication skills, problem-solving skills, and more. Number 8, inquiry-guided instruction. By asking questions and working together to solve the problems, students get to be involved in the learning process. The class can work together to determine the answer and report it. As students do the work to discover the answers on their own, they remember the concepts better and more fully. Number 9, lesson objective transparency. Rather than letting your students figure out what they should be learning on their own, just tell them. Clearly state your lesson goals and objectives. You could announce it in class or write it on the board. Just make it simple and clear for all your students to understand. Then, they know what they're working towards and what they should know by the end of the class. This is also really helps to reduce student anxiety. Last, number 10, the graphic organizers. Graphic organizers summarize the information in a concise manner. Using a flowchart, Venn diagram, or web, students get to see the information in a new light. This helps them organize the information in their minds so they can better grasp the new concepts.
All right, so that gave quite a few different strategies, instructional strategies of how to do things, but we're going to go over some ones in particular. So what I would like everybody to do is follow with me on the quiz as we go over these, because all of these that we're going to go over right now are the next like 6 slides. Okay. So cooperative learning, instructional strategies, differentiated learning, blended learning, project-based learning, and student engagement. So if you do these right now, as we're going through these, you're going to get the right answers. Okay. All right. So first one we're going to go over is instructional strategies. Okay. Instructional strategies are techniques teachers use to help students become independent, strategic learners. These strategies become learning strategies when students independently select the appropriate ones and use them effectively to accomplish tasks or meet goals. So using these strategies, you want to be something that's called, I'm trying to think of the exact psychology word. basically you're introspecting yourself, right? You're looking in and saying, hey, this is the way I think. Metacognition, I think that's the word. So basically you're thinking, how do I learn, right? You're trying to help your students do that. Psychoanalyze. Yeah, kind of. I think you do that to other people, but I think it's got metacognition. I think that's what it's called. But you learn what's the best way. Because you know how we talk about Howard Gardner's like multiple intelligence, like when you're thinking of something like that, like how do the best I learn? I think it's metacognition. Definition. Awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. Yep. So that's what it is. Metacognition. Awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. So how do you kind of think and you do that? Okay. So you may work really good with what's called cooperative learning. That was one of the ones on the video. So cooperative learning involves structuring classes around small groups that work together in such a way that each group member success is dependent on the group success. And this one's kind of big when it becomes to like work environments too, because most of the time you work in little teams and you have to work together to create whatever it is and work that you need to get done, right? And as you work in teams, you're able to do this. Okay, the next one is differentiated learning, okay? Differentiated means tailoring instruction to meet individual needs, okay? Whether teachers differentiate content, process, products, or the learning environment, the use of ongoing assessment and flexible grouping makes this a successful approach for instruction. So differentiating, you're really honing down on the individual and saying, what does the individual need? So for example, some people don't like to test in large groups, right? Which is kind of understandable because you kind of get scared with that kind of stuff, you know? So you go in and you look at getting placed in a small group setting where it's there. So that's a way to differentiate. Another way is, you know, learning at different levels and stuff like that. Okay, the next one I like quite a bit. It's called blended learning. Okay, this is a lot of, or it's also known as hybrid learning. It is a method of teaching that integrates technology and digital media with traditional instructional-led classroom activities, giving students more flexibility to customize their learning experience. For example, this is completely virtual, right? But if we were to make this blended, what would happen is usually you would receive the instruction on how to do things online, like here, and then we would go and we'd meet as a group sometimes. A perfect example of this is driver's ed. Perfect. Okay. So I give the instruction virtually, and then you go into a vehicle, right, to do your behind the wheel training, and you do that, and that shows that you can do it. So that would be a blended learning model. Okay. So you're learning the stuff, the theory stuff online, and then you're going and actually doing something. And that's what I like, because you get really to the doing part, right? So you learn on the computer, that kind of stuff, and it's very flexible. And you can customize it too. The next one's project-based learning. Project-based learning, or PBL, is a teaching method which students learn to actively engage in real-world and personally meaningful projects. So this is where, for example, like a lot of what the ATC does, right? The Applied Technical Colleges. So you're going there, and my brother, he went into a welding program at one of the ATCs because he liked working with his hands. And so one of his projects that he did is he welded an actual metal guitar. Okay. And so that would be a project-based thing, because he did something that was personable to him, a project, and then he actually stringed it together, and he still has it, and he could actually play on it. So that would be a project-based learning right there. Next one, I think this is our last one. Yep, our last one is called student engagement, okay? So this is basically what you need in order to be successful is to have the students be engaged in what's going on. Okay, this does turn around a lot to the student and saying, hey, what kind of behaviors are you showing, right, to be successful? But it's the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, optimism, and passion that a student shows when they are learning or being taught, which extends to the level of motivation they have to learn and process their own education. Okay, so learning is what you guys have to do, right? I could present all the knowledge there is. I could present it in different ways, but you're going to have to want to do it. And that's what student engagement is, okay? And that's probably one of the hardest things in education, is trying to get the students to want to be able to do, want to learn, pay attention and focus and like this stuff. So hopefully teaching is something that you want to look at doing. So hopefully this isn't hard for you to learn these different concepts. Okay. So if you have any questions, you have right there, somebody wanted me to go and do instructional strategy. So what I'm going to do is put this as self-paced. But I will go back and just do instructional strategies right there. Okay. All right. If you guys have any questions, you can take off. I'm going to stop the recording here, but thank you everybody for bearing with me and all those technology issues. Hope you have a great day.